Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be discussing, well, Ubisoft. Many of you have noticed for a while now that the state of balance in this game has been kind of controversial. And, the game itself isn't balanced, and there's oftentimes a form of meta. Ubisoft, every season since season 4, I believe, they have been constantly putting out, I want to say, posts describing the state of balance of that season. However, they normally wait till just after the season is over. This was not the case for season 6. They just now put out a blog about, the state of balance, and this is halfway through, more than halfway through season 7 that they finally started mentioning this. And it's honestly kind of a joke to the point where I downloaded it, and apparently I'm not alone because a good portion of you actually hated this post as well, and for several reasons. And we'll get to that here in a second. Well, it's a very stupid post. I'm saying it's just flat stupid because it's not really well thought out in any way or form. Let's take, for instance, this this chart right here of balance. Well, you can clearly see Conquer still is the king of winning, and followed shortly. Well, this was back in season 6, mind you, so take that as you will. Kensei follows shortly behind. Well, Kensei seems to be a pretty fair character, and obviously with a lot of options, he's not far behind a fairly powerful character. Again, this is season 6, so season 7 did, of course, offer some changes. In fact, Warden probably jumped above Kensei. But I digress. Centurion somehow got above everyone else, and Warden maintained his spot in his shoulder bash spamming vortex way, being somewhat perfected by a bunch of people. And Shaman, being Shaman, and then Lawbringer creating a, thanks to Splice and his kite strat, as well as Lawbringer just overall being a huge turtle and benefiting from it, managed to steal a spot of 51% win rate. And that's more or less the top 6, but for all the wrong reasons. Conquer should not be this strong. Kensei is only one reasonable, but that's because every other character is crap. Centurion managed to win the spot because, well, Ubisoft believes it to be a guard switch bug that was patched in Season 7, or towards the end of Season 6. So, actually, no, I think it was in Season 7, it was fully patched. And I honestly could probably attribute this as well. Centurion, being a somewhat relatively good character at doing fast attacks, but also having the failed option of being able to switch your guard when he does fast attacks, reasonably, he's gonna win. Plus, also having a high stamina compared to other characters during that time, such as Orochi, which did get a minor bump, but only up to about 50% win rate. And then a bunch of other crap, like Shigoki getting up here above 51%. That's just because everyone plays him turtles, and it shouldn't even be that way. But it's ignored by the devs because he's above a 51% win rate, even though that shouldn't be there. Highlander is Highlander, he should be there. Uramusha, I don't quite know. I would attribute that more towards the guard switch bug and the fact that he also has unpunishable parries attempts. So that means it's very difficult to fight some Uramushas. However, that is more or less for the wrong reasons. Shinobi, high counterattacking, low, which you can see throughout this chart. He has high abilities to counterattack, but very little ways to open up against some characters. And also, since Peacekeeper fell so low, he was able to benefit from that as well. Orochi benefited because of the Season 6 rework, of course. Berserker fell down below, quite possibly due to the guard switch bug, which Yubi keeps mentioning all throughout this post over here. And Warlord was never good. I don't even know why they consider guard switching when he never locks on, period. Raider, similar story. Nabushi, I don't quite know what her deal is. Gladiator, we'll see. Again, Ubisoft contributes this to the guard switch bug, but again, like, he does nothing but zone spam. And it's just very confusing overall why he's still the way he is and why he's at the bottom because of that. And we also have Valkyrie, which got reworked so we can almost ignore her. And then Peacekeeper, poor Peacekeeper, because of the guard switch bug and because of her nerf, which brought almost no changes to her moveset, left her to fall behind and get a very low win rate. Now, taking all that into account, you could say, well, there's reasonable changes to do balancing. Here's where it really, really, really makes a lot of people mad, and why this post has zero karma. Well, other than the pick rate, here's the issue. This talks about how Conqueror's Shield Bash is perfectly fine the way it is, and how they have no intention to nerf it, and how they want it to force reactions. Basically, Ubisoft is saying they like Conqueror's Shield Bash being a 50-50, and that is enough to make a lot of people mad. And they're also saying characters like Centurion being a top character, Lawbringer and Shigoki would actually beat a Conqueror by countering and not by initiating combat. If you are forced to only counterattack and not initiate in any form or fashion, that is not a way of playing this game and should not be considered a form of balance. But yet Ubisoft thinks it's balanced. However, they think the same way about Lawbringer. That because he has no way of initiating, but he has extremely good counterattacking potential, they believe he is perfectly fine for 1v1. But because he has bombs, he is also extremely good for 4v4 and should not be on a list at all. A bit of a problem with this. Peacekeeper, because of her guard switch bug and because of the nerfs, she dropped to the very bottom. I can understand this being a small priority, but there are some very big issues with the game that should be addressed other than just keeping an eye on Peacekeeper the entire time. Peacekeeper's had enough time in the spotlight. Try and do as much as you can without focusing on just this character, please. Beyond that, we have Orochi. They simply said that the switch stance bug is fixed, so Orochi will be an interesting case to watch. I can agree with them to a certain extent on that. I can. But beyond that, we must move on. Valkyrie. More data comes in, they'll keep watch of the character because she was reworked, and so that's her basically stance in that post, or the data sheet, was irrelevant, and I do agree with that somewhat. But here's where it gets interesting. Gladiator was 45% win rate in Season 5 and 46% in Season 6. This is an interesting case as we're aware that the zone attack is really good, and we believe the key to Gladiator's power. This already is making me mad. They know that Gladiator's zone is unbalanced and extremely good, but they intend for Gladiators to spam it. This is an issue. They intend for it to spam. While the stamina cost is really high as compared to Conqueror's Shield Bash, which they still think is balanced somehow, the win rate doesn't seem to reflect the power of his move, and it's surprising to see the character consistently perform under expectations. So what they are saying is they intend for Gladiator to zone spam, but because people don't like to zone spam and don't intend to play like absolute jerks in 1v1s, that Gladiators are underperforming, and therefore they're considering not balancing Gladiator. This should not be the reason for Gladiator being ignored, and should not be what you consider balance, is not his one zone. And that was the issue with Peacekeeper for the longest time. She relied on her zone, and that was what the devs considered fair for her. Because her zone was good and nothing else, they believed she was perfectly fine. This is not the case for balance, and should not be considered the case for the devs. Yet here we are. Lights, fan meta, and assassin meta. Overall, this was a joke, in which case a lot of people considered the assassins to be the best class in the game. However, there was large controversy over this and was quickly forgotten after a while. And again, as they said here, doesn't really apply to the top tier. And I can agree to that. I agree with that to some degree, but I feel like that was just unnecessary at this point. But they did address it, so. And here's where I really get angry. This is the, can I open this in a new tab, please? I want to open this in a new tab. I can't get much better image. Lovely. Okay. You guys are going to have to deal with this. This is the 4v4 win rate for Season 6. Now, already we can see a huge issue with this. There's a clear meta between everything from Shaman to Kensei. Kensei's unblockable feat, as well as already being a decent 1v1er, clearly puts him at the top place. However, a blockable feat is getting a nerf, so we should expect this to change somewhat. Lawbringer, along with having a kite strat, which is extremely useful for ganking, his long arm, which is again extremely useful for ganking, and also being able to throw bombs and parry punish effectively, leaves him in a very strong spot for a meta in a 4v4 scenario. And it's honestly not even close to fair. Then we have someone like Raider, who can spam Raider charge, and while you may get revenge, if you are ever caught even with revenge, you are left completely vulnerable to every known attack in this game except for Shigoki Hug and arguably Shaman Bite. And that kind of leaves Raider to be in a very strong spot for Dominion, where he has 53% win rate, which is still extremely good and should not be a thing, but is considered a meta because you were in a crowd control situation where Raider seems strong. Then we have Aramusha, which he's only good because of his buffs and his feats. Because of this, he can have Rocksteady, which appears to be the meta at the moment, where he is unpunishable, out of stamina, on by Highlanders, Caber Toss, or by Revenge. And that leaves him to be decently strong, as well as he has the ability to do a unblockable zone, but that's not that good of a thing because it's extremely predictable and can be parried. However, it is enough pressure in a gank, and this leaves him to be very powerful in a 4v4 situation, but not so much that it's because of the character itself, but because of the feats he was given, which seem unbalanced. And below that we have Warden, who appears to be strong as always due to his shoulder bash, and because of his ability to get a guard break, which again is powerful and could lead to ledging, as well as the catapult, which adds to that and gives him a very nice edge in combat. Along with the Fiat Lux that was also still present in Season 6. It was just not a fun time. Warden was still decently strong, but not so much as the other characters, such as Raider, Lawbringer, and Kensei. Aramusha was a bit of an iffy case. Shaman, the ability to pin down any opponent with bleed, combined with anyone like Nobushi, Shinobi, or even Aramusha should he get Sharpened Blade, can often lead to an instant kill of an enemy. Kinda leads you to believe he's very overpowered. she's overpowered, and can lead to a small win rate increase. Now, here's where I just ignore Centurion and say everyone below Shaman clearly has a low win rate. Yet, none of them have been given 4v4 balancing in any form or fashion. And 4v4 balancing seems to be obviously very out of balance and should be addressed, yet is very ignored. Like, look at this. All of these characters have a decent win rate. Then you have more than half the cast down here having a less than 50% win rate. That should not be the case. But yet it is, because Ubisoft is ignorant when it comes to balancing. And then we also have the pick rate, which can lead to some of these numbers being influenced, but not that much because, well, Valkyrie and Peacekeeper was stopped being played because of her nerf, and people quickly realized how useless she was. Gladiator, people don't want to only use the zone. Valkyrie was Valkyrie. And then Shigoki, same case for Valkyrie. And then Aramusha, because people are too afraid to play him in a situation where they are left alone, and that results in a 1v1 scenario, in which case Aramusha does not do well. And then we get over here, where they talk about the win rate being low for Peacekeeper, and how the Orochi being useless in a gank, thus leading to his low win rate in, well, Dominion. Where is that at? Where is that at? I seem to have lost where Orochi is. Yep, there it is. And Aramusha, I cannot get more angry at this. They talk in this section right here. They more or less talk about how Aramusha was nerfed from his 500 millisecond dodge recovery to his 600 millisecond dodge recovery to be globalized. However, because they saw no difference in the statistics, they said that the nerf was virtually unnoticeable to players and thus should not be addressed anymore in the future and will be ignored. This gives me a headache with how mad I am getting at this. It's not true, which is clearly seeable in the 1v1 area. 4v4 does not determine how his dodge recovery is in a 1v1 scenario. It's just retarded on so many levels. I can't even discuss it. I don't even think retarded people are this dumb, honestly. Like, it's stupid. It's ignorant. And then we get into Valkyrie, which again should be ignored because Season 7. And then they finally say Shigoki is underperforming and should be improved, but they don't say anything about it. And they don't give any details. They just say, oh, he should be improved. It's more or less what they said with Nuxia in the open test. Oh, underperforming. We'll fix that later. That's more or less what was said. And we saw no improvements to him in the Marching Fire open test as well, leading me to believe Shigoki is just going to be that character that says, oh, he needs to be improved, but will be forgotten in the end. So, and because of this, because you see there's a clear meta, you see clear loss in 4v4 scenarios, extreme pick rates of characters that will benefit said meta, and you also see that there's so much wrong with the 1v1, and that there are clear metas being addressed, and that you're only saying should be ignored partially because of guard switch bug. See, half this data would be more reliable if they patched the bug as soon as they saw it. But what did they do? They waited until Season 7 to finally patch this bug, and thus all their data that they had gotten from Season 6 was ruined. And this basically was so wrong. Because Ubisoft fails to update their game frequently, it ruins the state of balance in their game. And because of this, and because they take so long to release data on the game's state of balance, there's almost nothing to do by the time you get it. So, and that leads us into this. Since this post was made 4 hours ago, lots of people have been downvoting it to the point where it is the most controversial post on the For Honor subreddit in the past week. And so I say this to all my viewers as well as anyone else that plays For Honor. This state of the game is completely messed up, and I encourage you to help all of us as a community reach out to Ubisoft to tell them one simple thing. Well, several simple things. And I think I actually said this myself in my comment to their post. The win rate needs to be addressed in 4v4s, whether it be feats or crowd control methods via out of log. The entire rest of the cast needs to be addressed in that issue, as well as the people that are currently being the meta. The game needs to be updated frequently, instead of allowing our data to be pretty much useless by the end of the season, and also completely ruining the experience in some situations. And last but not least, we need to see this data. We need to stop waiting until 2 months have passed before we finally see this data. And that seems to be a very major issue. And I encourage all of you to voice this out to Ubisoft. And without further ado, I bid you all goodbye. See you in the next video.